never going back. They laughed at her as a female mechanic until the engine roared back to life. In a small town where tradition ruled the streets like a stubborn fog, Sarah stood out like a neon sign in a world of black and white. The garage was a realm of greasy metal and diesel fumes, where the laughter of men echoed off the concrete walls. "You? A mechanic?" They scoffed, their voices dripping with disbelief. But Sarah smiled, a fire burning in her chest. She was tired of playing by their rules, tired of the whispering shadows that loomed over her. And today, she would show them. The old truck sat in the garage, a relic from better days. Its paint was faded, peeling like old wallpaper. But what caught her attention was the engine, a complex puzzle just waiting to be solved. The faint smell of burnt oil hung in the air, each whiff igniting the determination in her soul. Her hands trembled slightly, a mix of excitement and fear gripping her. Would they finally see her? Would the laughter die away as she knelt beside the aging machine? The world outside faded into a distant hum. She turned a wrench, her fingers moving confidently among the intricate parts. Clangs echoed, vibrating through the floor as she pried stubborn bolts loose. The sweat trickled down her brow, mixing with the grease on her hands. Yet the sound of mockery pierced through. Look at her, as she could almost feel their eyes boring into her back, watching her every move. It was an unbearable weight, but it only fueled her fire. Then came an unexpected sound. The deep growl of the engine, tremulous yet clear, rippled through the garage like a shockwave. It was as if the truck had come to life, waking from a long slumber. Her heart raced. This was something more than just mechanical. It was magic. She turned, adrenaline pooling in her veins as the smirks around her began to fade. This was the moment she had been craving. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With the engine still rumbling, she could almost taste the electricity in the air. The onlookers stood in awe, their jaws slack. No longer were they laughing. Now they were silent, caught in the spell of the unexpected. But just as quickly, a flicker of doubt sparked within her. What if it wasn't enough? What if the magic faded too soon? The weight of their judgment hung heavy again. Sarah's breath quickened as she realized this was only the beginning. As the sound of the engine roared through the room, she felt the glances shift. Eyes were wide with disbelief, curiosity, and fear. In that moment, everything changed. She was no longer just Sarah from the neighborhood. She was a force. But somewhere in that garage, amidst the weight of expectation, lay the question that made her heart race with uncertainty. Was she ready to face the truth of what this moment meant for her? And what kind of power had she just unleashed? The hum of the engine faded into an echo, and with it, the energy in the garage shifted. The stunned silence was thick, almost suffocating. Sarah's heart thudded against her chest, the adrenaline coursing through her veins, screaming for release. The disbelief on their faces was intoxicating, but lingering doubts clawed at her insides. Did you see that? A voice finally broke the tension, laced with incredulity. It was Mike, the ringleader of the mocking crew, the one with the sharpest tongue. For a moment, it felt like the air crackled with possibility. This was the moment she'd dreamed of, a chance to prove them wrong. But uncertainty nipped at her heels. What if it was a fluke? What if she couldn't replicate this success? Steeling herself, she got back to work, hungry to seize the reins of her newfound reputation. She gripped the tool with newfound strength, each movement deliberate, confident. Her hands danced over the engine, reconnecting hoses and tightening bolts, shaping the chaotic collision of metal back into order. A truck was nothing compared to the ambition electrifying her mind. "Hey, Sarah, what is next? Gonna fix the whole garage too?" A remark sliced through the reverberations of the engine, sharp and cutting. Laughter accompanied it, but the tone had changed. They were no longer laughing at her. They were laughing because they didn't know how to react. A mix of admiration and confusion held them captive. She paused to take a deep breath. The scent of oil, now mingling with something sweeter victory. Their teasing had fueled her. Now their awe was just more fuel for her fire. The whole room felt like it was spinning, a cyclone of emotions: fear, thrill, uncertainty. She cast one glance at the crowd. Their faces were a medley of astonishment and rising respect. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, savoring this breakthrough. But just as quickly, a shadow flickered through her mind. This victory wouldn't last without proof of her ability. But then, the garage door creaked open, breaking the moment like glass. A figure appeared, silhouetted against the bright outside. The crowd turned. "Who is that?" Someone whispered. Sarah squinted, recognition striking her like a bolt of lightning. It was Jack, the owner of the truck. His presence loomed large, shifting the energy from victorious to anxious. The swagger in his walk contrasted with the tension in the air, and as he approached, the room thickened with apprehension. "Hey there," he shouted over the noise, a cocky grin plastered across his face. "What have you done to my engine?" "This isn't what I expected." The crowd shifted, murmuring in anticipation. Their eyes darted between Jack and Sarah, the weight of the moment pressing on her shoulders. Sarah's heart raced. Would he be angry? Disappointed? Or could he finally see her worth? Those questions spiraled in her mind as she tried to summon her voice above the din. "I brought it back to life," she stammered, tensing under the weight of judgment. Jack stepped closer, his gaze searching hers. "Well, let us see if it can drive," he said, his tone dripping with skepticism. A chill ran down her spine. This wasn't just about making the truck roar, it was about her future. Would she sink back into anonymity, or would this be the moment everything changed? "Get in," she blurted, a mix of defiance and fear dancing in her chest. The crowd fell silent, the tension electric. Jack hesitated, a smirk playing on his lips that sent shivers of uncertainty through her. All eyes were on them, but her own gaze was fixed on the door of opportunity. Would she be able to steer this truck down the road, or would it all break apart at the seams? As she signaled for him to climb in, Sarah felt the floor fall away beneath her. She was ready to take a leap into the unknown, but what awaited her on the other side? Jack's foot hovered over the rusted floor of the garage, uncertainty flickering across his face. The crowd held its breath as Sarah's pulse raced louder than the engine had moments before. She could feel the weight of their hopes and doubts pressing down on her like a heavy fog. With a sharp nod, Jack stepped inside the cab, the worn vinyl seat creaking under his weight. His hands clutched the steering wheel, a mix of curiosity and skepticism etched into his features. Sarah shot him a determined look, and he raised an eyebrow, as if daring her to prove herself right here, right now. "Turn the key," he said, half mocking. Her fingers trembled as she approached the driver's side. The crowd was an audience to her fate. Sarah squeezed the key in her palm. This was at the moment where everything shifted. Gulping down her fear, she slid into the seat next to him, the scent of gasoline mingling with her anticipation. "Here goes nothing," she whispered to herself, heart racing, as she inserted the key into the ignition. She turned it slowly, and the engine sputtered to life. The sound roared through the garage like a beast awoken from slumber. A symphony of metal and power filled the air, echoing off the walls. It was a sound she had longed for, one that Instagram couldn't encapsulate, one that sent adrenaline coursing through her veins. Jack's eyes widened, momentarily shocked, reflecting a mix of surprise and grudging respect. She reveled in the thunderous roar, the validation ringing louder than the engine itself. But just as she leaned back in her seat, a strange vibration coursed through the dashboard. The truck jerked violently, and the thrilling roar morphed into a concerning sputter. Panic rippled through the crowd like a live current. A few gasps echoed, faces shifting from admiration to horror. "And no, not now," Sarah gasped, her palms slick with sweat. She fumbled with the controls, desperately glancing at Jack. "I swear I fixed it. What is happening?" His confident demeanor had cracked. The smirk was gone, replaced by concern that mirrored her own. "Stay calm. I can handle this," she replied, the shaky determination in her voice overshadowed by the urgency of the situation. She slammed her foot on the brake, heart slamming into her ribcage, as if trying to leap out. The engine coughed again, sputtering ominously. It was the sound of failure creeping in, a reminder of her fears. She didn't just want to prove Jack wrong. She needed to crush the doubts buried deep inside her. With nimble fingers, she began checking gauges, recalling her training. The crowd watched as every second felt like minutes. Breaths held taut as the tension escalated. Uncertainty gnawed at her gut. Would this be her triumph or her downfall? "We need to check the fuel line," she declared, gripping the door handle like a lifeline. "Are you sure that's it?" Jack's voice sliced through her concentration, uncertainty dripping from his words. "Just trust me," she snapped, the urgency propelling her forward. She slid out of the seat, heart racing, weaving through the heavy gaze behind her. As she fumbled beneath the truck, the creeping dread clawed at her mind. What if this was all in vain? What if the engine couldn't survive her mistakes? Fingers working quickly, she pried open the cover, revealing a twisted mess of hoses. The crowd wasn't just a background noise. Their whispers intensified, doubt hanging in the air as thick as smoke. Then, just as she located the issue, a shadow fell across her workspace. She looked up sharply, heart in her throat, to see someone standing behind her, a figure she hadn't expected, someone whose presence shattered her focus. "Need some help?" the voice asked, and Sarah froze at the inflection, the challenge echoing in her ears. Before she could respond, the figure moved closer, and she felt the weight of judgment heavy all over again. Who was this person? Was it someone who would uplift her or expose her fears? The tension spiraled as she realized this moment wasn't over. With the stakes higher than ever, she knew she had to push past the suffocating sense of doubt one last time. As faces swirled above her, she silently vowed this would be her end. But what awaited her as she stood at the precipice of disaster? The real battle had only just begun. Sarah's breath hitched as the figure loomed over her, a dark silhouette against the grimy garage light. She recognized the voice now. Max, the mechanic from the shop down the street. He was a local legend, known for his expertise and a knack for stirring up trouble. His reputation was tinted with contempt for anyone who stepped into the male-dominated realm of gearheads and grease. "I didn't know you were working on this," he said, a smirk creeping across his face. "Seems you've got more guts than brains. You've got to be careful. This work isn't a game." Her heart raced, but not in fear. Anger surged. An unwelcome fire ignited within her, a flame that called for her to rise up and stand firm. She clenched her jaw, refusing to let him intimidate her. "I've got this," she replied, narrowing her eyes at him. "What do you want? To gloat?" The crowd remained silent, the weight of tension thickening the air. Sarah could feel every gaze resting on her, and she wasn't about to let Max shake her resolve. "If you're not here to help, maybe you should maybe I should help," he interrupted, dropping to one knee beside her. She didn't want to accept it. She didn't want to admit that she might need him. But her knowledge of the engine was no match for the multi-decade experience he had. She was still a rookie at the end of the day, no matter how hard she fought to prove otherwise. Max leaned closer, his brows furrowed as he inspected the mess of hoses. "You might have a leak here, and that's causing the engine to lose pressure," he pointed out matter-of-factly, his tone a blend of condescension and concern. "See this? You need to cut this piece out and replace it before you blow up your engine and yourself." She swallowed hard, scanning the complex array of tubes. Panic crawled back into her mind, but she gritted her teeth, shaking off despair. "If you think I'm going to let you do this for me, you're dead wrong. Just stay out of my way." Jack's gaze flickered between them, uncertainty written all over his face. "Sarah, maybe it would be better to know. I can't back down now," she snapped, her voice louder than she intended. Rejection layered with determination danced in her chest as she dove into the chaos of wires and mechanics. She began to unclip the fuel line Jack had directed her to only a moment ago. The engine sputtered ominously again, a ghostly reminder that time was slipping away. Every second felt precious, and her fingers trembled as she fought against every doubt threatening to shatter her confidence. "Just breathe. You got this," she whispered to herself, wrapping her fingers around a wrench. She cut through the shivering anxiety wrapping around her throat and focused on the task at hand. Each twist and turn of her tools held her fate within them. Suddenly, a scream erupted from the back of the crowd, cutting through her concentration like a knife. Startled, she whipped around, dropping the wrench onto the floor. Max was already on his feet, but it was Jack. The fear sprawling across his face silenced her heart. "Look," he shouted, jabbing a finger behind them. Sarah turned to see thick, black smoke billowing from the garage's entrance, curling in like an unwelcome guest. It swirled ominously, blurring her vision and choking the irony of her situation. Fear gripped her, tightening around her heart like a vice. What is that? Fire! Someone shouted from the back of the crowd, promptly breaking into chaos. Adrenaline brought her back to the task at hand, but a new dread filled the air. The crowd was scrambling, voices rising feverishly. It was no longer just about the truck, it was about survival. "Get out of here," she yelled, her heart pounding, panic spilling into her words. The engine coughed once more, but it was drowned out by the rising chaos of panic and confusion. With the thick smoke swirling closer, she wasn't going to let this moment end in fear. She had to act fast. She turned back to Max, determination flashing in her eyes. "Help me finish this. We're not done yet." Their eyes locked, a silent agreement passing between them. In a moment, they would either rise together or drown in the flames. But could they really beat the odds? And what lay ahead once the engine roared back to life? With the stakes higher than ever, Sarah pushed back against the doubt that threatened to consume her. The battle was just beginning. Heat engulfed the space as Sarah's heart raced. The smoke curled tighter, bringing with it the acrid scent of burning rubber and metal. It choked her breath, blocking out the frantic screams of the crowd. Panic surged in waves, spreading like wildfire amid the chaos. "Sarah, we need to get out," Jack shouted, his hands flailing, eyes wide with panic. But she couldn't leave, not now, not when she was so close. Not yet. She fired back, her resolve cementing like iron as she met Max's intense gaze. They'd come this far together. She swore she could feel their fates weaving together in that moment. Max moved, his hands steady against the engine as he reached for what needed to be done. "We have to cut the fuel line and seal it quickly. No more time for hesitation." Her hesitation faded to nothing. She dived back into the underbelly of the truck, hands racing with determination. As she fumbled for the right tool, a loud crack echoed overhead. A beam shifted violently, not just shaking the garage, but sending shards of debris raining down around them. "Watch out," Jack yelled, sidestepping a falling piece of metal. Focusing hard, Sarah gripped a pair of pliers and pulled with all her strength. They squeaked in defiance as she yanked the fuel line loose, her ears buzzing with fear and the pitch of the approaching flames. Suddenly, Max was at her side, his rough hands shooting out to steady hers. "Go, now," he commanded. But as she twisted away from the mess spilling from the engine, a searing pain shot through her shoulder. She stumbled back, glancing into the smoke. She couldn't see clearly, but she felt something damp seep through her jacket. Blood. Panic clawed at her like the flames behind them. Jack rushed to her side, eyes wide. "You're hurt." "Shut up," she snapped, swatting at his hand. "Get the damn fire extinguisher." Max was already moving, darting toward the wall where the fire equipment hung. She felt a pang of gratitude. They were in this together whether she wanted to admit it or not. As he grabbed the extinguisher, the door burst open, and fresh air flooded in, swirling with the smoke like a tempest. The crowd surged toward the exit, fear-laden faces blurring against the gray haze. "Sarah," Jack shouted again, pulling her back to the present. "We're outnumbered. What if the fire spreads?" A scream erupted from behind them as flames breached the edge of the garage, licking hungrily at the cooled metal of the truck. Max came back, extinguisher in hand, ready to spray the flames licking at their backs. "We need to finish this. Now, once we cut this line and seal it, we can hopefully clear a path to the door." Her breath hitched as a wave of determination washed over her, pushing aside the pain in her shoulder. "Fine. Let us do it." They worked quickly, adrenaline coursing through them. With every turn of the wrench, heat kissed her skin, yet she focused on the task, her heartbeat sinking to Max's movements beside her. With a final twist, the line was severed, and she grabbed the sealant. "All set," she shouted, tossing the roll to Max as he positioned himself to cover the opening. The sudden whoosh of air stoked the flames. Everything burned brighter, shadows danced chaotically around them. "Seal it," she urged, heart hammering as the blaze tried to inch closer. Fingers trembling, Max worked as she fought against her mounting dread. Suddenly, Jack's scream reverberated through the chaos. "Look out!" Before Sarah could react, The roof creaked ominously, a threat hanging over them like the danger boiling in the air. "What now?" Max cried, glancing back as the smoke thickened. A sharp crack echoed, drowning out their voices, as the structure began to give way. That was it. They needed freedom. The engine needed to roar back to life. "Max," Sarah shouted above the din. "If we don't start this now, we're dead." The flames surged closer, burning her resolve to ash. But could they really finish before the whole place turned into a blazing tomb? With the blaze clawing at their heels, the battle for survival was more than a mechanical challenge. Now it was a test of everything she had. In that moment of raw panic and urgency, they gathered their last breaths and strength, ready to fight fire with fire. Would the engine respond? Would they escape the inferno? Time was running out. The moment hung heavy like a storm cloud, every second fraught with impending doom. Sarah's pulse raced, pounding in her ears, drowning out everything but the encroaching roar of flames. Max was still fumbling with the sealant, his face twisted in concentration, but Jack's wide eyes glinted with terror. "Just start it," Jack screamed, his voice cracking with desperation as he gestured wildly at the truck. "We need to go?" Max nodded, finally sealing the last bit and tossing the empty canister aside. But the urgency hung thick. With shaky hands, Sarah climbed up to the driver's seat, and every muscle in her body screamed for ease. But time was their enemy. She turned the key, her hand trembling against the worn plastic. The engine coughed a sputter that echoed like a futile plea. She felt the weight of failure crushing her. "Come on," Jack yelled, urgency dripping from every syllable as he glanced back at the flames licking the doorframe. The heat intensified, wrapping around them like a suffocating shawl. Sarah tried again, turning the key forcefully, her breath hitching as the engine made another desperate attempt to roar back to life, but only sputtered again. Max's hand slammed against the dashboard. "Damn it, Sarah. We need this now." She gritted her teeth, fighting against the despair clawing at her insides. With one last push, she turned the key with a fervor born from desperation. The engine groaned and came alive, the throaty rumble filling the garage with a sound of salvation. "Yes," Sarah gasped, heart swelling with a mix of relief and disbelief. "Go, go, go," Jack shouted, already diving for the passenger seat. Max sprang to his feet, breathless. "Hit it. Get us the hell out of here." She slammed her foot on the accelerator. The truck jerked forward, tires screeching against the concrete floor. The smoke encroached, thickening as the smell of burning oil flooded her nostrils. "Watch the roof," Jack yelled as beams shifted ominously above them. And then, with a shudder and crack, the ceiling gave way behind them. "Hold on," Max shouted, bracing himself. With a jolt, they burst out of the garage just as the inferno behind them unleashed its insatiable fury. Flames roared in a furious dance, igniting every inch of the space they had just escaped. They tumbled onto the main road, the night wind rushing through the windows, a stark contrast to the heat they had just fled. For a moment, silence enveloped them, just the dull thump of the engine and the distant crackling of fire as they pulled away. But the relief felt false. Shadows loomed in the rearview mirror, figures gathering amid the disappearing flames. "What the hell was that?" Jack breathed, glancing back, the color draining from his face. "They're coming for us," Sarah whispered, though she hadn't believed it until she saw those shadowy forms move. They didn't look like firefighters, more like a pack of wolves hunting their prey. "Don't look back. Just drive," Max urged, his voice steady despite the anxiety coursing through the air. "What if?" Jack started, voice trembling. "Just drive," Sarah shouted, adrenaline firing her resolve. They sped down the deserted road, but every glance in the rearview told her they weren't safe yet. No, this was just the beginning. What were those figures? Who were they? Uncertainty clawed at her mind, and as the specter of that unknown danger loomed ever closer, a chilling realization struck. This wasn't just about escaping the fire anymore. They had invoked something unforgiving, and it was now behind them, relentless and unyielding, driving them towards an even darker fate. "Sarah," Max said slowly, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the road ahead. "We need to make a choice. Fast." What choice was there left to make? Would they face the fire again, or confront the shadows that were closing in? With the road ahead dark and full of dread, How much farther could they go before everything came crashing down? The truck hurtled down the winding road, the engine's growl matching the pounding of their hearts. Sarah's knuckles went white, gripping the wheel as they raced deeper into the night. Pure adrenaline coursed through her veins, a blend of fear and determination that shattered the glassy facade of calm she wore. Where do we go? Jack's voice trembled, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. The figures were gaining, their shapes twisting in the shadows, monstrous and relentless. They were like phantoms, driven not by fear, but by something primal, a hunger for what they were leaving behind. Anywhere but here, Max barked, scanning the dark horizon as if it held answers. The headlights cut through the dusk, revealing the twisted landscape. Trees loomed on either side, their branches clawing at the night like skeletal hands. It felt as if the world was closing in on them, a trap set by unseen forces. Damn it, Sarah, just keep driving, Max yelled, panic cracking through his voice. Sarah pressed harder on the accelerator, the engine roaring defiantly against the chaos. We need to lose them first, she gasped, but her breath was ragged. Sweat dripped down her back, melding with the clammy chill of fear. The shadows behind were no longer just figures. They were a storm, wild and angry, surging closer with each passing second. A wall of trees appeared ahead, blocking any chance of veering off the road. They have to be close, Jack shouted, a surge of desperation cracking through his words as he pointed wildly to the left. Turn there. We might lose them in the woods. Without questioning it, Sarah yanked the steering wheel, tires screaming against gravel as she veered onto a narrow trail. The truck jolted violently against uneven earth, and every bump sent a jolt of fear clawing up her spine. Faster. They're right behind us, Max urged, his own fear palpable as he twisted in his seat, anxiety coloring his features. The trees closed in tighter, their silhouettes merging with the encroaching darkness. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as branches scratching against the metal felt like fingers gripping tighter, warning them to turn back. But turning back was not an option. Suddenly, a heavy thud echoed from the back of the truck. Jack turned, terror painting his face. What was that? Without a word, Sarah pushed the pedal down even harder. The engine sputtered, a worrying cough that echoed her own fear. No, not now, she murmured. There it was again, another thud, more forceful this time, followed by a crash that sent a cold chill down her spine. It wasn't just their pursuers driving them. It was something else, something that must have hitched a ride during their escape. Stop. We need to check, Max urged, his voice sharp as a blade. Are you insane? Sarah shot back. They had to keep moving, but the instinct to flee the unknown was powerful, clawing at her very core. Please, we can't outrun the shadows forever, he insisted, the desperation in his voice revealing a crack in his resolve. The truck jolted again as something shifted behind them, a muted growl that caused a chill to snake down her spine. Sarah, pull over now, Jack shouted. The trees ahead seemed to quake in their presence, an unseen menace lurking just beyond the reach of the headlights. Just as her heart thundered in her chest, Sarah had to decide. Run or confront whatever darkness had joined them on this twisted path. The flickering lights from behind illuminated the figures in waiting. Were they close? Were they human? Was it too late to turn back? It felt like the moment stretched into eternity as she slammed the brakes and the truck screeched to a halt, the world teetering in a fragile balance. What was chasing them? And what had they unknowingly invited into their lives? The shadows whispered their promise of chaos, and as they shifted closer, they knew one thing for certain. They had entered a realm of consequences that would chill their souls to the core. The truck lurched to a halt, the engine sputtering like a dying beast. Silence enveloped them, thick as a fog. Each of them held their breath, knowing instinctively that the stillness meant danger. The shadows around the vehicle seemed to pulse, as if the darkness itself were alive and watching. Did you hear that? Jack whispered, his voice shaking. They strained to listen. The growl from the back of the truck had faded, but now there was a different sound, a scratching, clawing noise that sent shivers down their spines. Whatever it is, it's not going to wait for us to figure this out, Max muttered, his eyes wide, darting to the mirrors as if hoping to catch a glimpse of their pursuers. He looked ready to bolt out the door at any moment. Stay calm, Sarah ordered, the trembling in her own voice betraying her bravado. "We need to assess the situation." She dared to glance in the rearview mirror, her heart racing as the lights from behind scarred the darkness. The figures flickered at the edges of visibility, long, lanky forms that seemed to twist unnaturally as they moved. Were they even human? "Let us get out and check the back," Jack suggested, but his voice carried an uncertain tremor. "Not yet," Sarah shot back. "We still have to keep an eye on the road. We might have a chance to escape." The scratching escalated, a frantic desperation that echoed deeply in the thudding of their hearts. It felt as if something feral was clawing its way to freedom, urging them into the unknown. Panic surged as they all exchanged frantic, fearful glances. "Sarah," Max said, a flicker of defiance sparking in his fading hope. "If we don't check now, it'll be too late." "Fine," she relented, taking a deep breath. "But we stay together." They slowly climbed out of the truck's cab, leaving the engine idling in defiance against the encroaching darkness. The night air was thick, suffocating, and the moon cast eerie shadows that danced at the edges of their vision. Everyone's breath mingled in the chilling air, leaving behind the warmth of fear and dread. That a second sound echoed from the back, a deep growl, more pronounced this time. Heart racing, Sarah stepped closer to the rear of the truck. She was the first to reach the tailgate, Max and Jack behind her, their faces taut with tension. "On the count of 3, Sarah said, trying to muster courage. 1, 2. The moment hung suspended like a fragile glass. 3. With a grunt, she swung open the tailgate, and there it was, a massive shape half concealed in the shadows, writhing against the confines of space. It had dark fur, slicked back and shiny, and eyes that pulsed with malice even in the dark. "Get back!" Max yelled, stumbling backward, pulling Jack with him. But before they could retreat, something lunged from the darkness, a clawed paw the size of a baseball glove shot from the shadows, swiping dangerously close to Sarah. She screamed, instinctively ducking. "Close the gate," Jack cried. In a wild flurry, Sarah slammed it shut. They stumbled back, adrenaline pumping, hearts racing faster. The growl shifted to a low, ominous laugh, the sound of malevolence, taunting them from within. "What the hell was that?" Jack shouted, eyes wide with horror, as they backed away, clambering towards the cab, but freezing before they reached it. Because the shadows had surged forward again, the figures in the distance no longer just whispers of darkness. They were now a thunderstorm of snarls, coalescing into form, driven by hunger that became palpable. This was not just a chase anymore. It felt like a hunt. Sarah grabbed the steering wheel tighter. "We need to drive. Now." "Where?" Max asked, panic rising in his voice. "Anywhere. Just drive," she yelled. But just as she jumped into the cab, her heart plummeted. The engine hummed alive. Suddenly she had touched the ignition. "Sarah!" Jack gasped, as the figures loomed closer, hungry for them. Before any of them could comprehend what was happening, the growl shattered into laughter, echoing across the night, dark, knowing, and cruel. They were not alone, and whatever had joined them was about to make itself known in a way that would rock their world to its core. As shadows descended, all that remained was the relentless question: would they escape the darkness that had so eagerly claimed them? The truck vibrated as the engine roared to life again, but it felt like a monster awakening from a long slumber. Sarah's heart raced. What would it do next? The dashboard lights flickered erratically, casting eerie glows across their faces, blending dread with uncertainty. She gripped the steering wheel so tight her knuckles turned white, but the laughter from the shadows seeped through the thin metal walls, cold and mocking. "Drive, Sarah, drive," Jack urged, panic echoing in his voice. The fear in his eyes was palpable, electric. She could practically feel it pulse through the air, but Sarah hesitated, her mind racing. They had been running for so long, it seemed. Which way was safe? Left into the unknown, or right towards the figures drawing closer? With the laugh still reverberating in her mind, she realized that this wasn't about escape. It was about survival. "Hold on." With a sudden jolt, she slammed the gear into drive and pressed heavily on the gas. The tires screeched against the asphalt, kicking gravel behind them. The darkness loomed in their rearview mirror, a storm that gave chase. "Faster! They're right there," Max shouted, his voice cutting through Sarah's frantic thoughts. She risked a glance back. The figures were closer now, eyes gleaming in the flickering light like predatory beasts. She barely caught their shapes: long, twisted limbs, humanoid yet grotesquely deformed. "Sarah, keep your eyes on the road." Jack's warning shattered her focus. She jerked back to the front, her heart racing faster than the truck. Suddenly, the dashboard lights went out, plunging them into darkness. Panic surged like icy water coursing through her veins. "No, stay with me." She punched the dashboard, but nothing happened. This was the moment she had dreaded. Just then, the growling resumed, louder and more horrific than before. It slithered under her skin, a physical force that siphoned any lingering hope away. Whatever they had tried to escape was gaining on them. "Look!" Max yelled, pointing to the side. In the distance, the glow of headlights pierced through the black abyss. "A road. We need to get to that road." "Don't lose focus, Sarah," Jack urged, shaking her shoulder. "We'll be okay. Just keep going." As they swerved onto the dirt path that branched off into the woods, the growling morphed into a chorus of chilling howls, punctuated by the sound of claws tearing through flesh. She bit her lip, fighting back the urge to scream, to break down. They could all die right here, in this dizzying nightmare with the specters of madness dancing around them. Then, it happened. A massive shape flung itself onto the hood of the truck, crashing down with a sickening thud. The whole vehicle jolted, sending all three of them forward in their seats. Sarah gasped. Horrified, they had been cornered by their dark pursuer. "Get it off," Jack yelled, panic taking over. She could see the creature now, its bloodied maw ripping at the metal as its eyes glinted, promising annihilation. Time slowed as she scrambled to act, instinct kicking in like steel-hard adrenaline. Gritting her teeth, she wrestled with everything inside her and kicked the truck into reverse, slamming down the gas. The growl outside morphed into a furious snarl, and she could feel the beast trying to cling to its prey as they sped backward. Then a heart-stopping crunch, the sound of metal tearing against bone. For a moment, silence descended like a shroud before all hell broke loose. "What did you do?" Max cried, shock written all over his face. "He was on the truck. I had to." But the creature wasn't done. In the rearview mirror, she saw it shaking off impact, fur bristling and eyes burning with rage. It was more than just an animal. It was a harbinger of something primal and unforgiving. "Just drive, Sarah," Jack urged, the wild urgency in his voice fanning her determination. She turned back to the road, heart pounding, feeling the weight of their fearful breaths. But as they tore down the overgrown path, the headlights up ahead began to flicker and fade, swallowed by darkness. Then came a chilling realization: what if the road wasn't the salvation they had hoped for? "Find the lights," she shouted, twisting the wheel with desperation, noting the beating wilderness closing in around them. And all at once, with mere inches between escape and the unknown, they lurched to a crushing stop. Silence fell. And then they heard it, a whispering, familiar voice carried on the wind among rustling leaves. The chill ran deep, seeping into their very bones. Come out to play now. The question was not only about survival, but about what lay beyond that voice. What had they awakened? Sarah sat at the wheel, her heart pounding like a war drum. The whispers wrapped around them like a chilling fog, and panic exploded within her. This was more than just an escape. They had stirred something ancient, something that didn't rest. It was the kind of terror that twisted your insides and crushed your spirit. What was that? Jack gasped, wide-eyed as he scanned the dark trees around them. Where's it coming from? The whispers grew louder, more insistent, tugging at their sanity. "Sarah, we have to go now," Max urged, his voice strained with urgency. But it was too late. The shadows surged forward, twisting and writhing like a living nightmare. "Drive," Sarah screamed, slamming the pedal to the floor. The truck roared in response, tires screeching against the gravel as they tore down the path, branches scraping against the metal frame like gnashing teeth. "Look out," Jack shouted, and Sarah steered sharply, narrowly missing a towering tree. The dark figures in the rearview mirror seemed to multiply, merging into one relentless beast. "They're right behind us." Her mind raced. "We need to find somewhere safe," she shouted, the gnawing dread churning her stomach. Just then, splashes of light glimmered ahead through the trees. "There, a clearing," Max pointed. With a fierce determination, she swerved toward the light, praying it wasn't a mirage. The truck barreled into the clearing, and the sudden openness felt like a breath of fresh air, yet the influence of the darkness still loomed ominously close. The terrain shifted beneath them as she pressed the brakes, the truck skidding to a stop in a cloud of dust. "What now?" Jack panted, scanning their surroundings. "Get out. We need to see what we're dealing with," Sarah commanded, adrenaline sharpening her focus. The four corners of their refuge felt like the edge of an abyss. The three of them scrambled out of the cab, fresh air filling their lungs as they huddled close together. They waited, hearts thrumming, breathing heavy. In that moment, reality shifted. The shadows met the clearing but hesitated, lingering at the edges like unsure prey. Max's gaze flicked to the truck. What if it wants the truck?" Sarah frowned, confusion knitting her brow. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he started, unable to hide the tremor in his voice. "It's drawn to it, somehow. Maybe it sees it as a threat or as a prize." Just as he spoke, the growling swept through the night, sharper and more menacing. It ricocheted off the trees, echoing like a warning. The panic surged once more. Colder than ice, something wasn't just hunting. It was sensing its prey. Sarah turned to Jack, determination igniting in her chest. "We take it back. We can't let it win." "What?" Jack looked aghast. "You want to go back to the truck? Are you insane?" "No," she replied firmly, their eyes locked. "We take the fight to it. Together." As the weight of her fear clutched at her heart, clarity surged through. This was their moment, their last chance to reclaim their power. Max nodded, his expression shifting from fear to resolve. "Let us do it." The shadows flickered closer, the darkness greedily consuming the clearing. Sarah shielded her eyes against the twilight. She had faced her demons before, hadn't she? She could do this. "Ready?" she whispered, the words heavy with the weight of fate. Together, they dashed toward the truck, their hearts pounding in unison, voices rising above the roar of the chaos. On the count of 3, Sarah called. 1, 2, 3. They lunged into the cab, fingers flying over the controls. Sarah turned the key, praying, begging for the engine to roar back to life. Would it respond? Would they have the strength? Time felt as if it shattered with every tick of the clock, the growling creeping closer, mocking them. The engine coughed, sputtered, then finally roared, thrumming with life like it had never been lost. "Yes," Sarah exclaimed, adrenaline surging. "Let us go." Jack gripped the door handle. "Get ready. We need to hit reverse and push through." Twisting the wheel, Sarah thrust the gas pedal down. The truck jolted back, tearing toward the edge of the clearing and the engulfing shadows. They soared into the darkness, light spilling from the headlights like a beacon. The engine growled like a beast defending its territory, fueled by fear and defiance. "Stay focused," Max yelled, bracing against the seat. They hurtled toward the storm of figures, now clearly outlined in the light, their forms and features oddly human, yet undeniably twisted. Just as they approached, she slammed on the brakes, sending the truck into a spin. The shadows recoiled, screeching as the light clashed with their existence. "Now," Sarah shouted, and they hurled objects from the truck's spanners, wrenches, anything they could grab like ammunition against the encroaching darkness. One figure hissed, the sound slicing through the air, a hideous rage. But Sarah and her friends weren't backing down. This wasn't just about survival. It was about reclaiming control over their destiny. "Let us fight," Max roared, grabbing a wrench, his eyes brimming with determination as they plunged into the chaos. Hearts racing and spirits ignited, they faced the shadows together, ready to reclaim what was theirs. By calling upon their strength and forging a bond that couldn't be severed, they battled back against the night. The figures recoiled, flickering as though questioning their own desire to claim the night. Sarah didn't know if they could win, but as she stood with her friends, courage surged. Together, they would either stand tall in the face of chaos or fall, fighting for their lives. The roar was deafening, and in that moment, Sarah felt a fierce hope ignite. No longer was she the girl who struggled for acceptance in a world that mocked her. No, she had become a force. As they pressed forward, she vowed they would never go back. A light pierced the darkness ahead, a promise of tomorrow. They could carve out a new path, leaving the shadows behind. "Let us go," she cried, foot heavy on the accelerator as the engine roared defiantly one last time. This was their moment. Their destiny awaited. And with that, The journey toward freedom began anew. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash the like button now and feed the algorithm to keep the good vibes flowing. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what happens next. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. You need to show your support right now. Only true fans understand the importance of spreading the word.